We welcome back to the Pulse. It's another year of basic education certificate examination results released by the West African Examination Council. And this year too, exam malpractices are grabbing the headlines. WAEC says it has withheld results of more than 22,000 candidates pending investigations and outrightly cancelled the results of some others. We have the data for you shortly, but the consistency of the malpractices is what is catching the attention of many educationalists and authorities. Joining me for a breakdown of the figures is my colleague Isaac Kofi Ajay, who is from our research desk. Kofi, you're welcome to the Pulse.
Thank you, Elton.
These figures, they never get improved.
Yeah.
So we are in 2024. This is what 2023 edition of the BECE exams. What are the figures saying?
So I am looking at the comparative analysis. So we started tracking the data from 2021 to 2023, which is the current figure. But just like you mentioned, we have about over 22,000 students whose results are being scrutinized and scripts are being scrutinized. If you compare it to the total number of candidates that we are looking at some 4% of the total number of candidates who participated in this year's BECE. And there's some sort of improvement in some of the indicators that we talk about whenever we are talking about results cancellation and malpractices. So I'll start with the candidates. So there was an improvement. Remember that 2 years ago, that was between 2021 and 2022, there was a drop in the total number of candidates who sat for the BECE. It dropped by some 3.5% in 2022. This year, thankfully, the number has increased by some 8.5% in 2023. Now, moving away from that, there is some sort of good news for probably those who are pushing the gender, agenda, because probably for the first time we've been able to close the gap, and we also have for the first time probably females being more than males in the total number of candidates who sat for this year's examination.
This is the first time we are seeing more females at the BECE level than males.
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
Interesting. So the gap has actually closed. We've worked so hard to come to this level. This year, you have about 49.99 male as against 50.01 female. So
that's very interesting.
One.
Right.
Now, let's go to the main issue,
exactly,
which is the malpractice and then the cancellation of results. So we are starting with cancellation of subject results. So in 2021, we had about 138 candidates, subject results being, cancelled. Then fast forward in 2022, we increased from 138 to 416 and this year we are talking about 312 candidates and 3 private school, 312 school candidates and 3 private candidates. So those who decided to sit in the form of the NOBDEC, and then those who are actually in school and still writing. That is the...
So if you look at 2022, and 2023, in terms of 2023, there's been a decrease.
There's a decrease, in fact, some 104 decrease, and that's an improvement. But if you still compare it to where we were
2021, that is quite a steep,
exactly, a steep climb. Now, let's look at the withholding, the total number of students who had their subject results withheld.
So what this means is that there are issues with these scripts.
Exactly.
And so WAEC is investigating whether there's merit in the reason why they are holding on to them.
Exactly.
It is not a conclusion yet.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the indicators are 3. We are looking at results that have been cancelled, subject results cancelled. Then we have entire results cancelled.
Right.
Then we also have results that have been withheld. Withheld means WAEC has not, just like you said, they've not...
Yeah, they are investigating. If there is no merit, you may have your results. And then, but if they have grounds to suspect that you engage in examination malpractices, the likelihood of you losing the entire results is what WAEC may come to.
Exactly. So if you look at the figure this is very staggering, because 2022, we were looking at 28 school candidates who had their results pending. Fast forward 2023, Elton, just look at 38
to 180.
And we are seeing some 142, increase just between 2022 and 2023. And this for me is the meat.
Exactly.
Of actually.
And this is the basic level.
Yes, this is the basic level. So for us to have this number of results being withheld and the rate at which it increased, because this is actually the year that we introduced the serialization.
Right.
And we were anticipating that this could help us reduce some of these malpractices, but it turns out that the figure is still very high. Then the last
180 candidates, 4 private candidates for various suspected offenses. So schools and WAEC is investigating this.
Absolutely,
right? Okay.
Absolutely, and you can see the increase there comparing 38 to 180. That's very huge. The last one that I want us to talk about is those who had their entire results cancelled. That we are looking at 41 school candidates and 1 private, as compared to 73 school candidates and 2 private candidates in 2022. That's some sort of improvement.
But again, if you want to go back in 2021, it was 46.
46.
It jumped to 73 in 2002.
So in
and 41.
In 2022, something actually happened, because
exactly.
If you see the first one that we showed, the cancellation of subject results, if we can have that one, you could see that 2022 is almost always like an outlier. 46, 41, there's some sort of uniformity. But 73, sitting between these figures, more or less like an outlier.
You get,
The same thing if you look at the cancellation of subject results. We had 136, then it jumped to 416 in 2022, then back to 312 in 2023. So I don't really know what went on in 2022, but it looks as if 2022 probably had a lot of more practices and suspected offenses going on, and WAEC had to withhold candidates' results and cancellation of results as well. So this is what we have in terms of the figures, some sort of improvement, and in certain areas we have staggering figures where the rate of change is actually very...
That's WAEC narrow it down to public and private schools.
So we do not have that disaggregation of the data, but we know that we have candidates, so school candidates and private candidates. In this sense, we have those who are in the regular schools, they go to school and they register with a school and then they write. Then we have those who decide to write private, probably because maybe they did not really get the grades they wanted the first time they attempted and they're trying it for the first time. That is the sort of disaggregation that you get. But to narrow it down to the total number of private schools versus public schools in terms of who did what more practice and all of those things, we do not have that disaggregation. Again, we also do not have, WAEC has not released the disaggregated data on the passing rate of this student, how many pass English, science, math, and all of those things. We know BECE is not like WASI,
right,
where we have, you are required to pass your core in order to go to the university and all of those things. BECE is somewhat different, where probably I think there's no cap right now. Everybody is being encouraged to go to school. Interestingly, this year we've added more than 48,000 students
going to the senior high school.
Going to the senior high school if you compare to 2022. And for me, that's a must.
Meaning government will have a lot of work to do in terms of creating,
so I see that
creating the space.
But in terms of expenditure.
Exactly. And this is also the time that government says that they are looking at addressing the double or the triple track system. They are hoping that they will face it.
And we even know that probably free SHS may even be reviewed. We don't know the form that it will take. But we know that it's one of the programs that the IMF tagged as not targeting the probably the right group, hence must go under some sort of review. We don't know how the review is going to turn out to be, but what we know is that going into 2024, the students who will be going to school, we've seen the candidates who sat for the examination increase by more than 48,000, and for me, that's very significant.
Before you go, let me ask you this, and from the data that you have, the analysis that you've made, is there an improvement in terms of the examination malpractices? Are we stagnating, or we are still going down?
For the malpractice, I think that if you look at the figure, the 22,000 who have their results being scrutinized, is very significant if you compare to the other years. We are talking about 3.8, almost 4% of the total number of students, candidates who sat for that year's examination, and almost 4% is significant. But if you compare to the other years, I think that this is actually very high. And then even with the result that have been withheld, for me, that is where the main issue is. Because imagine taking your child to school, you know, most of these kids are below the age of 19 or...
Most of them actually below, in fact, under normal circumstances,
should be below 16,
you should be completing JSS at age 13 or 14.
Yes.
Exactly.
Imagine you have your results being cancelled and all of those things. The psychological and emotional mango that the children will go through is what I think is something that we have to look at.
All right.
What is actually causing some of these things?
Sure, absolutely. And we're going to find answers to some of the many questions that we have on our hand, especially from the examination body, because WAEC is responsible for the organization of this exam at this very level. And the key question that we are asking, so when are you going to go through this investigation so that the kids will have the opportunity to have access to their results? That is, if you will not find any adverse findings against them, so that they can go and pursue education at a secondary level. And for those who may have committed errors and investigation proves that indeed they committed such errors, what are you going to do and what are the remedies available for such people? And then how do we improve the system such that we won't come back next year to look at the data and the figures representing examination malpractices? Let me go on Zoom, because we are joined by the head of the West African Examination Council, Mr. John Kapi, who is joining us via Zoom. Mr. Kapi, welcome to the pause here on Joy News.
First, no head of WAEC Accra.
Yes, Mr. Kapi, can you unmute for me so that we can have a very exciting discussion? You're welcome to the pause here on Joy News.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so these figures, I'm sure, I mean, from where you sit as, you know, an examination body, this may not come as a surprise, but for many, at this level, and we are still reporting more practices, what really is happening?
Thank you. I'm head public affairs. I'm not the head of office.
Sorry about that.
All right. Now, what's happening is that if you look at the figures that we've brought out so far, for those that have been cancelled, we observed these in the course of the examination. The reports came to us, we investigated. Those who were found culpable, their actions have been taken about them. Now, in the course of marking, some other infractions were observed by our examiners, and these are the ones they've brought to our attention, and they are the ones that we are attending to by way of investigation right now.
So 22,000, you know, scripts that you are holding on to it, you are investigating. That's going to take quite a long time for you to complete your investigation. So question is, when are you starting? When are you finishing? So that for those who you may not come across as having committed errors, so that they can pursue, you know, education at a secondary level. And for those who may have committed errors, what then happens here? So let's start from, when are you starting this investigation?
So investigations have already started. In fact, we started as far back as last week. We have categorized them by region. And so in the next week, when we are done, we should be done with our preliminary investigations. We would send our officers to the regions where they are going to meet with the candidates one-on-one and put before them whatever we have found. And then we ask them to defend themselves. If they are able to tell us something that is relevant in terms of the fact that they are innocent, then we'll see. If they are guilty also, we would take action appropriately.
And what action are we talking about here?
Well, for those that will be found culpable, because the nature of the irregularities that we have seen so far, most of it is based on collusion, where you have candidates in a particular room. Let's say you have a room of about 30 candidates. Out of these 30, about 26 of them have the same material provided as answers to the questions. They have the same errors in spelling. They have the same sentence structure. You know, so it raises eyebrows. And these are things that we want to look at and ask the candidates, how come that they are all producing the same answers? All
right. So the key question here is, doesn't this call into question the role and then the quality of invigilators you had during the examination period?
Right. We need to place on record that the West African Exams Council works in collaboration with the Ghana Education Service. Now, the council does the moderating, we do the compilation, we print the question papers, and we take them to the schools. Now, when we get there, the rule, according to GES, is that the teachers' invigilation role is part of their teaching role.
Okay.
And therefore, in every school that you go to, the teachers who are there are the ones who should invigilate these examinations, right? So it will be very difficult for WAEC to question the integrity of these people until such acts occur. And so when these acts occur, at best, what we do is we make a list of these people, hand over to Ghana Education Service, the employment agency, to deal with them, because as a council, we cannot deal with teachers directly in terms of sanctions.
But now, you were involved, let me ask, were you involved in the selection of the invigilators?
No, WAEC is not involved in the selection of invigilators. No, it is done by the Ghana Education Service. Therefore,
if I'm right, we're extending the investigation into the role that may have been played by these invigilators.
Certainly. As I speak, we've already prosecuted 2 of them around Nyankumase, and they've been
related
fined
to
by
BECE?
For BECE, yes. They were found guilty, and then they've been fined. There are others whose dockets are being prepared, and there are others also whose cases are pending in the courts. So what we do is that we take them to, we send the names to the GES to take action, but that is not to say that the court cases will be thrown out. No, whatever they've done, provided it's criminal and breaches the rules of the rules that govern the conduct of the examination, we make sure that sanctions are applied.
I know that you have the facts before you. You are privy to the information regarding this matter. In terms of schools, public and private, have you done the aggregation to say that most of the malpractices came from the private schools or the public schools?
For now, you know, there are certain pieces of information when you churn them out, you create a lot of furore. So as much as possible for now, we are dealing with individual candidates. All right, so when we are done with the candidates, we can then do the analysis of what percentage was coming from private schools, what percentage was coming from public schools.
All right, so okay, we can leave this here for now, but we are talking about the future of very young people, and they have an obstacle that they need to deal with. So what then happens to those that the investigation will conclude that they indeed misconducted themselves? Possible punishment for these people, and what are the remedies available for them as we're going forward?
It's a multifaceted problem. First of all, we want to appeal to our teachers, appeal to opinion leaders. For example, let me just bring this in. There are reports of opinion leaders asking teachers who are not willing to assist children in their schools to leave the towns. We haven't been able to place our hands on the exact places that these things occurred. Now, so when these things happen, it means that even opinion leaders are part of these irregularities we are talking about.
Okay.
So in order that we can have a sound future for our children, at best, let's allow them to do whatever they can on their own. Invariably, most of the time, when you do the scrutiny, you realize that those who did independent work would have done a very good job. There are others also who would have written the right answers, but because someone's dictating other answers to them, they cancel their right answers and write the wrong ones.
You get them confused.
So we need to allow the children to feel confident in themselves that they are capable of writing the examination. Teachers should allow them, opinion leaders allow them, let them do independent work. And you'll be surprised at what they will come out with. I am very convinced about that.
But Mr. Kapi, what kind of conclusion did you draw from all of this? Is it lack of confidence, lack of preparation, or simply the case that the questions were just too difficult?
Well, in terms of difficulty, we tried these questions on the final year candidates who have left already. And so at the end of the day, for the questions, the chief examiners will all tell you that they fall within the scope of the children because we expect that by the 3rd year, they should have been taught all those things. I believe, and this is a personal opinion, that most of the teachers feel they've not done adequate, they've not had enough time, with the students, and therefore they are not adequately prepared for the examination. That for me is one. There are other monetary considerations where teachers collect monies, some for BECE as low as 10 cedis, okay, to assist them in the examination halls. Same applies to WAEC. When it comes to that, we'll talk about it. And then the issue about opinion leaders I mentioned earlier. So if all these interested parties would do their bit and allow the children space to work independently, I believe that we will churn out better results than we have right now.
So for the year under review, are you able to tell us the pass rate?
Oh, for now, no, because there are still some that are pending. So statistically, it would not be right if we try to categorize them. For example, this 22,270 we're talking about, it may come out that about half of them would be let go because there's no sufficient evidence to hold them. But once it's been reported to us, we are supposed to hold on to it and then ascertain the veracity of the accusation or allegation or otherwise.
And I'm guessing that you will fast track this such that those who are innocent will have their results so that they can pursue their education at the secondary level.
Obviously, as a council, we do not wish to put brakes on anybody in the pursuit of their academic work. So we are going to try as much as possible to fast track this in order that they can get the results and proceed with the education.
All right, Mr. Kapi, before I let you go, clearly this was, for want of a better word, we weren't expecting the results to come out so soon. Does this suggest that perhaps all the issues about money and debt owed the council has been fully settled by government?
Oh, I would say that we talked about money. Some monies have been paid to us, yes, so we've been able to finish with the BECE. We are now working with the WAEC, and there's still some monies yet to be paid to us, and we pray that the ministry or the government, for that matter, would settle their indebtedness to the council so that we'll be able to carry out all the assignments fully and successfully.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Kapi is the head of public affairs at the West African Examination Council. He's been educating us on what is at stake now. The issue is that over 22,000 scripts, WAEC is investigating it to arrive at a conclusion whether they were involved in examination malpractices or not. The outcome will determine whether you have your results to pursue your education at a secondary level, or you will suffer the penalty for doing, what you did. Let me come to the studio because the president of the National Union of Ghana Students, Cheme Opon Daniel, is in the studio with me. You've been listening to Mr. Kapi. Education is quite important. And at this level where you have 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, involving themselves in illegalities, clearly it tells you about the kind of future ahead of us. But you've been listening to WAEC. Is WAEC justified in taking the decision that they have taken?
All right. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity and extend greetings to the over 12.5 million Ghanaian students out there who are listening to us now. First of all, I think we're praising the government on how we are having an increasing number of students who are now moving from the basic schools to the senior high schools. But over the past years, we've had issues of our educational system being marred by these irregularities. And I think the minister, as part of plans to curb these issues, brought about the serialization of our examination, which for the past years, we've been seeing a lot of improvement. Last year, like this one, WASI was reading. We didn't hear of any malpractice or any leaked paper because of the serialization. This year, since same serialization was done, but the mindset, attitudes of various institutions and key players as far as the good writing of the BECE is concerned has not changed. So at a point, we side with WAEC that they are going to take actionable steps towards mitigating the challenge, but at a point, if they would have to send issues to court and deal with the corporate. Personally, I feel now with the student in question, WAEC should be able to quicken and also fast track their activities and release their results. But now the key players who have to do with the teachers, the headmasters and others who are really indulging in all these stuff. You get to some of the schools and in their quest to satisfy, I don't know, the educational system or the education minister, they want to use ways and means to make sure they are having good results. Get there now, these students are going through a lot of irregularities to make sure they...
Daniel, is there so much pressure on the schools? For example, there is this, I don't know what else you call it, league table of best performing schools. So if your school is last, that is an image issue you need to deal with. There's even the issue of best performing districts. Now it graduates in the best performing regions. So clearly from the onset, we've put so much pressure, and that is giving perhaps rise to educational authorities, parents and teachers and school heads to now employ other means to make their students more competitive.
See, I remember way back in school, these teachers who used to teach us, normally when WAEC or WASI results comes, they're always praising actually Ima's teacher, your student really passed. So there's some kind of competition. They don't want to, at a point, go through the proper process, lay down process to make sure these students are passing. They want to make sure whatever thing they can do to make sure the student go through the process, and then they be praised that, oh, Charlie, so and so teacher did so well, his student passed up to this particular number. And at a point, you've taken that confidence out of the student. I remember my kid brother some years back, during the process, was schooling. He was not doing well at all, wrote BECE and had like 20-something. So I was surprised looking at how good the kid was. So we sat the kid down, we organized a private teaching for this kid, and we taught him well. When he sat for the WASI, he had 7 A's. So I was surprised. So if at a point, if all these things are scrapped off and we put that all students on that same platform, we inculcate in them that confidence that they can do it. And let them change their mind. Because when you get to some of the institutions, the students have that mindset that when it's approaching, when BECE is approaching, when WASI is approaching, so and so teacher will be helping us. Right. We'll have to make some contributions so that it lessens or it frees the system for us to copy and all those kind of things. I feel if we get to that stage, we inculcate in them that confidence, because the ministry and the others are putting the structures in place to ensure smooth running of examination. But it's gotten to that stage where we would have to psych our students up and also punish the corporate who are involved in all these kind of things so that it serves as a deterrent to the other institutions to keep the situation.
So I asked Mr. Kapi, the WAEC PRO, that clearly the students in question did not do this on their own. Yeah. They had support from either the invigilators or the heads. So clearly, if you are punishing, it must go beyond the students. That's and he told me that 2 invigilators already are in court answering for their crimes. But is that enough?
On any day, one, the student should not be blamed for the happening. Always I say that it's been happening. We hear of teachers, we hear of head teachers who are involved in this, and it just ends there. Behind the door, a lot of negotiations ongoing. This time, individuals who have been caught in this thing should be well dealt with, so that it serves as a deterrent to other people. If possibly, we would have to jail them, so that it serves as a deterrent to some of the other players who are also putting in their best. Else, it will mar and also derail the kind of good works the government, the Ministry of Education is putting in place to uplift the integrity of our examinations. And
the other question is, what does this tell of the kind of leaders we are producing, even at this level, if they are cheating or if they are being introduced to cheating?
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about. That now we've made it has become a normal thing happening in our various senior high schools. It has become a normal thing happening in our various basic schools, that at a point when you get there, you are supposed to do so. Meanwhile, when you get out there, there's a clear plan on how we could have a proper examination, a clear plan on how students could go through the process in passing their exams so that they get to the various tertiary institutions. So trust me, when you get to some of the institutions, recently, on a recent panel discussions I had with an economic lecturer at the University of Ghana, see some of these students move out from these senior high schools, basic schools, they get to the university and very brilliant, and sometimes even how to speak the English is even problematic. Yeah. You get it. So there's some kind of breach somewhere that we should critically look at, in so that moving on things could clearly change.
Is it a case that because government has a policy that says that whatever the situation is, we must create the environment where every child of school-going age must have access to education? So therefore, it's an open-door policy. Let everybody go. Look at the two sides of it, the advantages and the disadvantages. I'm all for educating everybody, because that is the first step in addressing poverty.
That's true.
And underdevelopment. If you have almost your entire countrymen and women educated, I can say with certainty that we have solved poverty halfway. So therefore, it's a good idea. But are we implementing it well?
All right. On any day, we will say that even the implementation of the free SHS policy is a very good idea. Having about 83,000 number skyrocketing to 1.3 million students. Aside the good policies we have.
From the statistics as we have it, there will be almost 40,000 more people entering the SHS. So we'll come to whether we still have the needed infrastructure to accommodate them, whether government is doing more to address the double and the triple track system. But let's deal with let's stay with the matter that is.
I think in rolling out any plan, on any day, the government plan, especially past days when FQ has been introduced and now we are getting a lot of students entering school for free. Free senior high school has been implemented and now we are having a lot of students entering senior high schools for free and all that. It's a very good plan, and any serious country that will want to develop in the future should be geared towards or should have some biased interest when it comes to education. But aside all these things, I think there should be structures to make sure that the free education we are giving these students, they don't just come out and they are just empty individuals not bringing anything out. So there should be well laid out plans as we are identifying them. We are seeing a lot. Recently when we noticed that the leakage in examination was becoming so much, the suggestions came and now we introduced the serialization, which in a way was curbing the system. So moving on, as we are informing government to really fasten their belt and also be quick when issues affecting the policies they rolled out are being identified, so that it could clearly help us on the happenings when it comes to the training of these kids in the various institutions, so that it doesn't seem like though we are giving them free education, you come out of the education and you are more or less like an educated illiterate.
Right. So what is new score on WAEC, for example? Because they are now, the man said that they've started the investigation. But how long is it going to take? If I'm one of those yet to receive my results, the psychological trauma this is going to take me through until I have it. Whether I'll be cleared or not is another issue. And the SHS will still reopen for them to enter. What is your call on WAEC as they go through this 22,000 people that they are investigating?
All right. First of all, they are doing a good job, but we are just telling them to fast track the activities because the education of this case cannot be truncated because of the irregularities. So now we are telling them to really fast track the activities in making sure that the 22,000 plus student results, which has now been withheld, be released as soon as possible. Because some of the times over the past years, as senior high schools reopen, other students are entering and still the results will be withheld, which delays other students from also entering the school. So all the things we are telling them is to really quicken their activities. I heard from him that they are having a good relationship with government when it comes to their payment and all the others. So now that all these cushions are coming, we are also telling them to really quicken and also fasten.
Outright cancellation, is it the best way?
Oh no. On any day, we will not go in for outright cancellation. Also, I say that most of these things happening, we can't blame the student for these happenings. We should be looking at the systems that is leading to that. On a normal day, as we are pushing for education as a right and not a privilege, we can't just cancel the papers of these over 22,000 students. That's huge numbers. We can't just truncate or limit their educational freedom because of misappropriation. So I feel, as we are looking at the nitty-gritties leading to this misappropriation, we should be able to fasten our belt and also fast-track the marking of these exams so that at the end of the day, moving on, we can be able to change.
Do you think that government has done more in terms of creating that enabling environment to encourage teaching and learning, especially at the senior high school level? We're going to have 40,000 more enter the SHS. We are still dealing with the issue of double and triple tracks. We're going to welcome more into the schools. Has much been done to expand the infrastructure such that we deal with all these tracks here and there? Because sometimes it's difficult to even follow the timetable.
That's true. In the early stages, one of the key things we were talking about was the double track and triple track systems, where a lot of students were sent in there and infrastructure was even a problem. In a country where our statutory fund has been capped, it puts the educational players in a very tight corner to really help our educational sector. One of the main funds that support our educational sector is the GET fund. And now the main funding has now been capped, and the amount due this fund is not coming any longer. So it's putting the Ministry of Education, is putting the GET fund at a very tight corner. Now we can't work on a lot of infrastructure. We can't work on a lot of educational initiatives because of this capping. In a country that doesn't joke with its educational structures, I feel as soon as possible, as part of plans of reading the budget and all that, Parliament, the government of Ghana should take quickened steps in making sure GET fund is uncapped. Until GET fund is uncapped, you'll find a lot of issues which has to do with infrastructure. As we speak, we are having well over 2.2 million Ghanaian students, basic school students, who have no desk or no books. We have over 5,000 schools which are still under trees, which is very worrying. And now the main fund, which is always helping build a lot of basic schools, which is helping transform a lot of things, has now been capped. How then do we see the metamorphosis going to be seen at our basic school level?
So is it possible if government says about 2027, they want to completely do away with the double track and then system? You see it feasible?
We've seen some changes happening with there's a lot of infrastructures being sprouted out, a lot of STEM institutions being built and all those kind of things. But if you don't look at all these things the government is saying, we are looking at how it will be actualized or how it will be realized. It will all be hinged or to all be connected to the funding to make sure these things materialize. And now this main source of fundings from our 2.5 tax we pay in buying something out there from any Ghanaian has now been capped. How then do we see to the full actualizing? I feel that if this uncapping is done, we won't get to 2027. We would have been able to do a lot before we get to even the 2020s.
I remember last 2 years, the former NUCS president, when he called on the president at the Jubilee House, this was one of the key issues that they put before the president. Has there been any development?
I was even part of, after the engagement,
Yes.
we did a small picketing in front of the Parliament House and other places, and also submitted our petition together with Kofi Asare, Education Watch, Africa Education Watch, to the Parliamentary Select Committee. Yesterday, I met one Parliamentary Select Committee member, Dr. Park, and I was discussing with him how far the GET fund uncapping thing has gotten to. And it was like, now it's on the plenary and they are having discussions on how to still uncap the GET fund. Others are saying it is never possible because of the IMF systems and all that. But I feel that as a system, or as a country that doesn't joke with its education, I feel one of the key areas we should prioritize is education. We've had notices of the Ministry of Education taking over 17 companies out of the capping system and organizations out of the capping system. And the GET fund is not part. So if we are still informing the ministry, we are informing Parliament, we are informing government that our education can never be joked with.
Of course.
Recently, when Akufo-Addo, our president, His Excellency Akufo-Addo, attended the UN summit, he made it clear that all African countries should invest almost 20% plus of their budget in education. But currently, as we speak, right after the talk, we are having less than 20% investment in our education because of the high rise in our GDP.
And even now, the IMF is insisting that we should target the free ESH as well. I mean, the only first was saying that review it, or better still cancel it. But that is for another conversation. But before I let you go, you think that we are on the right track? We still have issues to deal with. I mean, in parts of the Volta region, the flooding has left over 22 schools, not working. So you have thousands of school children not having access to education. These are teething issues that must be addressed immediately. But in your general view of how the sector is, we have a budget that is coming up on the 15th of November. What do you expect to hear on the educational front?
All right, so I think when we heard of, as a union that concerns ourselves with student welfare issues, or recently when we heard of the Akosombo Pond spillage, we rushed to the venue to really run a lot of feasibility tests and also get the values right. As we speak, we are having over 19,743 students who have been affected by this flood. Out of these 19,000, we have over 10,000 of them whose educational materials has been displaced. Upon getting there, we got to know that these students are now sitting under trees with no school uniforms, with no books, psychologically not psyched up for the journey ahead because of the situation they find themselves in. Out of these numbers, you're having about 3,200 of them females who are complaining of even not having hygiene materials and all that. And one worrying thing that at a point got us gobsmacked was when we got there now, most of our teachers in front of them are voluntary teachers who are SHS leavers. And we thought WAEC as the National Union of Ghana Students, though the ministry putting plans in place to get the teachers back, we are embarking on a volunteer teaching, which currently we have over 231 volunteer teachers.
In the affected areas?
From the National Union of Ghana Students,
okay.
who will go into the affected areas to teach for free for the next 1 month. So we're sending our teachers, the screening processes are still ongoing, and we are informing and educating them on the mechanisms they should be using when we get there to teach. Aside that, we'll also be gathering our staffs, our resources, our books and other materials to get to this place and also help these kids. In view of that, we are just calling on all organizations, since I've seen a lot of CSOs, government and other organizations donating a lot of items to the community folks. We are asking that they support this novel project the union is embarking on in sending 200 Ghanaian teachers, trained teachers who are yet to be posted to these communities to teach these kids for free so that the educational lifestyle of these kids won't be truncated.
And that's a very laudable initiative Dan Lewis has taken. I want to congratulate you for that. But thank you very much for coming through for us. Daniel Chairman is the president of the National Union of Ghana Students. We've been looking at the WAEC statement that came up last night, where they've taken some steps against those who misconducted themselves during the basic education certificate examination. 22,000 of them, WAEC is investigating their scripts. Some have had theirs cancelled outright. And then, of course, some invigilators are already in court answering for the crimes against them. And WAEC says that once they are done, they'll be announcing more measures in terms of sanctions and how to even improve the system even further. This is the pause here on Joy News. We'll take a break, and when we come back, I'll take you to Parliament, because in Parliament today, President Akufo-Addo has named 3 individuals for consideration by the Appointments Committee of Parliament to the Supreme Court. And of course, remember that the Finance Minister will deliver the 2024 budget on the 15th of November. Now, as it is with the practice in Parliament, once the budget is presented, MPs will now have to go and have a post-budget workshop, 3 days, to look at the budget and then come back to the House to debate it. Now, there's a debate on the floor as to whether Parliament should go and pay thousands or millions of Ghana cedis to house all the MPs in a hotel for the next 3 days for them to go through the budget, or they should find a way to hold this post-budget workshop in Parliament. Already, opinions are divided on this matter. When we come back, we'll explore these matters. Welcome back to the pulse here on Joy News. You're also available on all our social media platforms. Now, let me take you to Parliament, because we are all preparing ourselves for the 2024 budget statement. And as part of preparations towards the 2024 budget, NGO Send Ghana says it has been engaging Ghanaians on what they desperately want government to set up: a health emergency fund to tackle unforeseen disease outbreaks such as COVID-19, which ended up disrupting the economic gains and drove the country into crisis. Data analyst Kofi Ajay will be joining me in studio on this these figures that we have it, but we'll do other things, plus take you to Parliament to hear from Koko Asante. But Dr. Deborah, with the Economics Department at the University of Ghana, will also join us soon, and then we'll look at what Ghanaians actually want to see in the 2024 budget. So Dr. Harriet Ajiman, I beg your pardon, is joining me via Zoom as we look at what Ghanaians want to see in the 2024 budget. Dr. Ajiman, you're welcome to the pulse here on Joy News.
Thank you very much. But let me please correct the impression. I'm not a doctor.
Sorry about that.
Please, it's just Harriet. That's
right.
fine.
So Madam Harriet, I mean, we are all looking forward to what the Finance Minister will tell us on the 15th of November. You have been engaging other people. They have their own expectation of what the budget should look like. What sense did you get from them?
Well, we had several, because we had looked at issues of health, social protection, agriculture, water and sanitation, usually cutting across these 5 sectors. Our emphasis is more on health, because of the experience we have all gone through with COVID-19 and the aftermath. And that is why we have called for the government to stay commitment to its own intentions to establish a public health emergency fund to cater for unforeseen outbreaks, health outbreaks in our country.
But I want to find out how crucial is this fund?
Well, outbreaks do not have timelines. It will happen when it will happen, and nobody knows when it will. And so it is important that we prepare as a country and be able to respond appropriately if it should happen. And that is why the fund is crucial, because when COVID-19 broke out, we had to go into our contingency fund as a country. And because it was inadequate, government had to look elsewhere, go to the World Bank and others to get funds for it. We want to think that those funding may not be for free, even if they are grants. The people of Ghana will definitely pay. And so if we do not want to continue to incur debts, even though it is inevitable, we as a people should look from within our country, mobilize our own resources, plan, prepare adequately. Some people have asked, why should we save money and wait for something that we do not know when it will happen? Preparing doesn't mean that the money should be lying in the bank. It means that you have to train our health workers, to be abreast with current or modern times diseases. We will have to establish the laboratories to the international standards that we require, fund the research institutions to fund. Noguchi depends largely on external funding to go into its research. I believe that as a people, we should be doing that ourselves. Internal support should be minimal, And so if we have our own fund, we'll be able to do that preventive measure. So some of the funds should go into immunization of different diseases that are coming up if the vaccines are found. And then if it should happen, then we also have some resources to respond. We had flooding in the Volta region recently. We could have had a health implication, and such a fund could have gone into support if there was an outbreak, with
in the country. But I know for sure that you have been following the discussion on the economy and the fact that we may not have space to accommodate all the many things that we want to do as a country, because we are clearly under an IMF program. And so government's approach towards 2024 is to continually generate revenue to meet expenditure. Whilst there's been called by others for government to cut down on expenditure, generating internally generated funds is crucial, more especially when we are not getting so much support from the outside world. Do you think that government can still find a space within the limited space to accommodate the proposal that you are putting forth?
Well, we are not asking government to bring in another tax or levy us. We already have the COVID-19 levy. It was established for COVID-19 and probably other health issues. But even though COVID is not entirely over, the magnitude is not as much as it was 2 years ago. And so we are asking government to use the COVID-19 levy as the main source or the seed for this fund. Already people are asking government to scrap the levy, but we are saying we don't think so. Like you mentioned, our budgets are always in deficit and we need the revenue. If government should scrap the COVID-19 levy, it will be a revenue loss to the states, and it is you and I who will suffer at the long run or in the long run. And therefore, we need to keep that fund, but we have to go back. Government will have to go back to Parliament and go through the legislative process of reviewing the levy, changing the name to Health Emergency Fund, or a name that will fit the purpose, so that it is not COVID-19 alone, because that will not be the only focus, so that fund can be used to address other relevant health issues in our country, especially when it comes to outbreak. So we are not looking outside, or we are not thinking of something new. This should start it, and then as we move along, we will begin to think of other sources. The most important is that when we assign it to health emergencies, we should just make sure we use the funds for the intended purpose. And be able to render accounts to the people of Ghana, those who are paying the levy. When people begin to have trust, or you build the trust of the people because you are using the fund for its intended purpose, when you come again and say that we want to increase the levy from 1 to 2, nobody will complain.
Okay, yeah. Let me just take you through the whole list of proposals that you want the finance minister or government to address. Ensure sustained financing of routine immunization programs, empower equitable distribution of immunization logistics, increase budgetary allocation and release to provide more sexual and reproductive health services, including providing and strengthening adolescent-friendly centers and family planning commodities, abolish period or menstrual tax, a very topical issue. Menstrual products such as pads should be considered as essential products, which should be tax-free. The cost of ready-to-use therapeutic foods, allocate and distribute enough funds for HIV and AIDS screening, testing, fast-track completion of Agenda 111, include dialysis treatment for chronic kidney failures. This is a tall list, and these are very important matters as well. But I know that the finance minister had a pre-budget meetings where, individuals, organizations were called upon to bring in their inputs. I don't know whether you had the opportunity to put this before the finance minister, as we look forward to the 15th of November.
Yes, we have already submitted. It's a tall list of health and education issues. And so we have submitted to the relevant ministries, and we have sent copies to the Ministry of Finance. These are issues that are already running in our country, and we are just drawing our government's attention to its importance. We should not neglect these issues because of the importance people or citizens have attached to it. For instance, when it comes to immunization, it's all about the availability of the vaccines. And so if government has an obligation of paying monies to our providers or our funders, such as Gavi, then our budget should take that into consideration and be able to pay so that we have the supplies in adequate quantity so that we don't experience the shortages that sometimes we do, because children sometimes may miss their schedules for immunization. We are just reminding our government that we shouldn't lose sight of that.
Exactly.
The pad issue is also a topical issue at the moment. I think the advocacy is loud now because of the price of one pad. And for some women, you may need 2 every month. And some are going, I think the lowest is 18 cedis for one. And so if you take girls from the age of sometimes 9 years who are already menstruating, and poor parents will have to get them 2 of these every month at these prices because of the taxes on it, then it's just appropriate that we call on our governments to do something about it.
Do you really think government? Do you really think that government is listening? I remember some time back the speaker directed the finance minister to.
They do listen.
Yeah. The speaker directed the finance minister to do something about it. It's still hanging. The argument against it, though, from what I've heard, is that if government should remove the tax on sanitary pads, there are already companies that have been established in this country under the One District, One Factory agenda, and some of these companies are producing sanitary pads for the local market. Now, the reason why there's tax on imported ones is that it will protect those industries, because if you should remove the taxes, the likelihood of them collapsing will be higher, because then you have people go to places like China and other countries to bring in finished products. And so you would have destroyed your industrialization agenda, which is employing thousands of people, to just satisfy few people who may just go in and bring in the finished product. Is there a middle ground in between these arguments?
The question will be how cheap is the one produced internally in Ghana? If those ones, the prices of those ones are lower than what is coming in from elsewhere, I believe that we will all turn our attention to what we have in our country. But go to the market, they may all be same price, selling at the same price, and that is what makes it difficult for young girls to be able to have pads. This is health issue. You cannot reuse pads. In recent times, people are producing reusable ones, and we will advise girls to go for it, parents to go for it for their daughters. But once majority of them are not reusable, we only think that it is fair for the prices to come down, because it is part of you as a woman, as a girl. You don't call for it. It will come when the time comes. So we need to do something about it.
But did you get commitment from the finance ministry people? Did you get that commitment that they may consider it?
You may not get commitments now. It may or may not be responded to, but it doesn't mean that it is off government's radar. Sometimes they are not able to respond to it immediately, but they will keep it and look into it in subsequent budgets. Remember, this budget is for 1 year. And so we have a tall list of things. They may be able to respond to some, those that can find space within the limitations we have as a budget, and some may be carried over into 2025. In fact, last year, when we went for the forum on 2023's budget, at least the Ministry of Finance gave us a list of inputs we've submitted, those that they have implemented, those that they were going to incorporate into the 2023 budget, and those that they were going to carry forward into 2024. So it might be a tall list, but it doesn't leave their list. They keep it and then they respond to it, let me say, bits and pieces. We think that government will be able to do all these if we are also, as a people, paying or contributing our quota in the form of revenues, so that nobody should be skipping taxes.
Let's talk briefly
and also
about
for our government to sorry, let me complete this. And also for our government, for the people of Ghana to see our government to be putting our resources to good.
So I was asking,
then it builds that if they pay more, it is going to be used.
Sure. So I just wanted to talk briefly about HIV and AIDS, because as you may be aware, Ghana attaining the lower middle class meant that we're not going to receive the needed support from the Global Fund. Now, the Director General of the Ghana AIDS Commission has been out on several occasions talking about the impact that is having on education, on provision of antiretroviral drugs, and all that. Should there be a special mention in terms of government resourcing the AIDS Commission, the absence of the Global Fund, money for the sector?
Yes, definitely, because the commission is doing two things. One is putting out the messages for preventive, but is to take care of those who are already infected. So they need the resources to do it. They need the resources to continually remind the people of Ghana, to live lifestyles that prevents them from acquiring the disease. by protecting ourselves. And then for those who have it, they must have the antiretroviral drugs, because otherwise, if they are unable to suppress their viral loads, then they may go ahead and also continue to infect people, because they may be sexually active. And once they remain sexually active, they must suppress their viral load. And they can only do so if they stay on their medication, which is the antiretroviral. And so it is for the good of the people of Ghana, you and I inclusive, for the government to protect us, to protect the one who has it so they can live longer and contribute their quota to
development of the country.
National development, and not have it from having it. So we do not have an option as a people. If we want to throw our hands in the air, it will come back to hit us hard. And in fact, I believe that research has shown that monies we put into curative measures are far much more than those that go into preventive. So we should work hard to rather prevent reinfection and new infections, rather than wait for them to happen, and then we are looking for resources to provide medication. It will put a lot of burden on our health system.
Before I let you go, I know that the IMF and of course government, because we are on an IMF program, the IMF itself has made it clear that government should look at the LEAP program, because it's very important, so that the programs that they are rolling out does not affect them negatively. Government says that there's been an increase in the beneficiaries, even though the Auditor General report says that a lot more of the money went into wrong hands. People who have died, yet we have beneficiaries taking money on behalf of them. Those who are the downtrodden, as people continue to grapple with economic challenges, what definite statement we want to hear in terms of, alleviating the harsh economic conditions of people at the very bottom? As I let you go.
Sure. So we will commend government for eating the leap and continually increasing the number. I think in last year's budget, the minister announced an increment in the amount that is given per an individual, or per two people, or per family, and that is good. It's in the right direction. What the message we want to give to government is that we need to factor in inflation. When we give these monies, we should consider the inflationary trends in our country, so that the little we give to the very poor in our country remains relevant. If we are unable to factor in the effect of inflation on the little that we give them, then we might as well not be doing anything at all, because it will mean nothing. It can buy nothing. They wouldn't have any purchasing power, even though we would think that we had supported them. But that is what is important now. Whatever monies we are giving to them, we should factor in inflation. We should consider the inflationary trends, how it is going to impact on it, and give them something real. So let's give them real values of money, money that can buy, and not just because we have to give them money. Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Harriet Ajiman, Senior Programs Officer with Send Ghana, and they have a tall list of proposals before government to consider. And we are talking about the 2024 budget that will be presented to Parliament on the 15th of November. That's just next week. And, as you may be aware already, even before the presentation is done, issues around the budget is generating controversy in Parliament. Some minority MPs are pushing to have the annual post-budget workshop in Parliament, done in Accra instead of traveling outside of Accra. MPs are annually taken out of Accra for a residential workshop on the budget presented before debate and consideration. Parliament has been informed this year that post-budget workshop will be held from Friday 17th November to Sunday 19th November at the Rock City Hotel at Kwahu in the Eastern Region. Now, we can listen to the Deputy Majority Leader in Parliament, Alexander Afenyomarkin, whilst presenting the business statement for next week.
all-important economic policy of government is scheduled for Wednesday, the 15th of November 2023, and the Minister of Finance will come to this House fortified by Article 179 of the Constitution to meet that constitutional obligation to the people of Ghana. Soon thereafter, Mr. Speaker, we will be in your hands, and again, to enable members make input, enrich their debates, we have programmed Friday, 17th of November to Sunday, the 19th of November for our post-budget workshop. This time, we are moving to the east of the country. Specifically, we'll be at Kwahu Nkwetia in the eastern region, and members will be housed or will be accommodated at the Rock City Hotel, a Ghanaian facility. Mr. Speaker, it's not a foreign owned. Yeah. Domestic tourism. Yeah. We were in Ho the last time. A Ghanaian owned facility. So, Mr. Speaker, will be.
All right, so that was the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, presenting the business statement for next week, where he announced how the post-budget workshop would unfold before members of parliament. Now, let me bring in the parliamentary correspondent, Kwaku Asante, who is joining me via Zoom. Kwaku, you're welcome to the pause. And my question is, why should a post-budget workshop generate controversy on the floor? It happens every year. Why should this year be different?
Well, that is the concern that, in fact, the Deputy Majority Leader himself speaks about. But the NDC MP for Boeing, Kofi Adams, is concerned that if you look at where the country's economy is currently, it is important that leadership at parliamentary level is shown to be making sacrifices. His concern says that if you go to Rock City Hotel and you're going to pay all that amount of money, there is something that you need to cut it. But of course, the concern, like you've just pointed out, is that this is something that has been done for so many years, so many times when the economy has been at some point of a stranglehold. This post-budget workshop has been held outside of Accra to afford MPs that relaxed atmosphere to be able to study the budget and come back and vote on it. Let's listen to NDC MP for Boeing, who raised that issue on the floor and demanded that it be held in Accra.
But I want to appeal to leadership, if it's possible, considering the government's plan to reduce expenditure and looking at the time that we have at our disposal to travel this far and be returning to commence sitting again on Monday, the 20th. If leadership can consider, so we have this budget workshop right here in the chamber. That could save us some money at this very critical time and use that for other purposes. It will help us so much, and we could demonstrate that Parliament is leading in tightening of the belt. At this time, we need to demonstrate that we are willing and prepared to sacrifice and cut some areas that we can cut. We have a very good environment here, especially when they have scheduled that we will commence the debate on Monday, the 20th. And Friday, the 17th, we are equally going to be sitting. Mr. Speaker, the business committee should rethink and consider that the savings that we will be making by organizing the workshop here would help to support many things. Yesterday we were talking about renal unit here. We have talked about the disaster that happened in Upper Volta and Lower Volta, and we are seeking to get some water to even support. We can use part of this to get water to support the flood victims. I think the leadership should. I'm trying to persuade leadership.
So, Kwaku, this is the argument by the Member of Parliament for Buem, Kofi Adams. But I know that Honorable Afenyabakin spoke the mind of the Business Committee, which is made up of both the MPP and the NDC leaders in Parliament. And Kofi Adams appeared to be more interested in protecting the public purse. But I'm wondering the response that came from the majority side.
Well, clearly, like you said, he did not get that kind of support. In fact, even his leaders who were on the floor did not speak up on this matter. But according to Alexander Afenyabakin, this is a decision that has been taken by the 20-member Business Committee, made up of 10 members on both sides. So this is not just coming from the NDP side in Parliament. He insisted that MPs must be cautious of certain comments they make that put Parliament in a bad light. He's at pains to explain that this is something that has been done annually. This is not something that is going to burden the public purse, and that the MPs should not be seeking to make political capital out of that.
Last year, we were in Hull for the post-budget workshop, and all honorable members were there. The decision was by the Business Committee, made up of 10 from each side. The Business Committee is not only made up of leadership, it's made up of other members. So this is the decision of the committee. It is not about leaders being insensitive. I would want to encourage members to be mindful of their choice of words and the approach they take on some of these matters. It's very important. Otherwise, then we should say that we should not take salaries at all as members of Parliament, and we use all of that for community service. Such approach is not appropriate. We do so to mislead the public, and we, the political class, become victims of unfair perceptions about the work we do as parliamentarians. So I will encourage members to be mindful of the fallout of unintended comments in this floor.
All right, so that was the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyabakin. I would like you to hold on for me briefly, because we've got some figures we want to break it down, because I know that in Parliament also, the President has put before the House some names that he intends to confirm their nomination to the Supreme Court. We know that the Appointment Committee will have to vet their suitability for the job that has been assigned them by the President. We'll come to that shortly, but let me bring in Kofi again. Kofi, so we've been doing our own analysis and putting figures together. As a former parliamentary correspondent, I know that members of Parliament, when they travel, for example, if they travel outside the country, wherever they go to, per their conditions of service, they are entitled to sleep in a 4-star hotel.
The best.
For example, if they should travel outside the country, they are to be flown via business class and all those issues. So it applies even locally.
Yeah.
Now we know that they are being taken to Rock City Hotel in the Eastern region, which according to the Ghana Tourism Authority is a 4-star hotel. Yeah. So what figures are we looking at?
So we decided to put some figures to this very conversation so that our viewers will understand the magnitude of what we are actually talking about. So we decided to go to Rock City's website to look at the, the rate per night, and try to do some calculation to see how much Parliament is going to spend in this post-budget workshop. So we picked the lowest rate from Rock City, which is 775 cedis per month.
This is the basic standard room.
Exactly, the junior standard single. So if we do for all 275 MPs, just accommodation alone, we are looking at 39,375. So more
for the 3 days or for one night?
For the 3 days,
okay.
We are looking at 639,375 Ghana cedis for 3 nights. That's just accommodation alone. Now, if we extend this,
let me emphasize: this figure is just for 275 members of parliament.
Just the 275.
Because I know that with such an exercise as a post-budget workshop, you will find the staff from the Ministry of Finance. You will find consultants that are always invited to come and lecture the MPs on the matters in the budget. Sometimes the MPs travel with their drivers, so the provision is done for them to be accommodated. Not sometimes in the main hotel that the MPs will sleep in, but in a different hotel. And then you have security personnel who also travel with them. Sometimes the media is also allowed into the opening and the closing ceremony. And these are all, but in these figures that you are presenting, this covers only 275 members of parliament.
The estimation does not cover this group of people that we are talking about. And so, Elton, if we extend this to, another, part of the hotel, which is a standard, which will cost some 1,020 cedis per night. Then we are looking at, for the 3 nights that they will be spending there, Parliament will have to cough up 841,500 Ghana cedis. That's, let's say, close to 850,000 Ghana cedis. That's for just the 275 MPs. Now, if you go to, we've been engaging sources, and they've been giving us some figures. So we are looking at an average room rate of, let's say, 1,700 Ghana cedis. If we do the math, then we are looking at for the 3 days, some 1.4 million Ghana cedis per night for the 3 days. That's just the 275 MPs. And so, just like you said, if you add the other variables, so like the Speaker of Parliament, because he's not part of the 275, the staff, drivers, security, feeding, per diem, conference room, and even you mentioned the media, then we are anticipating that for them to be able to do this, you need not less than 2 million Ghana cedis for these 3 days that we are talking about, Elton.
Well, Kofi, those are the figures. And of course, let me bring in again Kwaku as anti-parliamentary correspondent. So Kwaku, this is just estimates. I mean, we look at the standard hotel all the way to the very top. And like I indicated early on, members of parliament, wherever they go, if they have to sleep in a hotel, the conditions of service stipulate that they are accommodated in a 4-star hotel. But let me ask, so this business statement that was presented by Honorable Afinyamakem has been accepted, right?
Nelson, come again.
I'm asking whether the business statement that was presented on the floor was accepted.
Well, yes, the business committee's report was endorsed, and so as it stands, from the 17th to the 19th of November, MPs will all go to Rock City Hotel. Of course, the calculation part of it is even their V8, who is going to fuel it, so that they all go to Kwewu, because there's no airport there for them to fly there. So they are all going to drive in their V8s, their Land Cruisers, to Kwewu, and some of these costs sometimes will be borne by Parliament. So this is something that the MPs who raised the issue, led by Kofi Adams, did not get any success on. And so 17th to 19th November, that is going to happen at the Rock City Hotel. So
Kofi Adams was alone in this position, or he had support from other MPs?
Well, on the floor, he was alone. But of course, there are a number of MPs who came out who, when you are trying to speak to them off the record, they are really in support of what he said. In fact, last year, around the same time, a similar sentiment were raised on the floor of the House. Some MPs, again on the minority side, insisted. At the time, it was Kofi, the MP for Bodi, and a number of other MPs, Samson Ahi, who raised those concerns on the floor, asking that this workshop be held within the precincts of Parliament.
In fact,
at the time, the promise was that.
Yeah, before it will not be the first time that such a program will take place in Parliament. As a former parliamentary correspondent, I remember that I participated in 3 of such post-budget workshops. First one was in Dodowa. The second one was in the Eastern Regional Capital. And then the third one was held in the Chamber of Parliament.
Right. So that is the concept people are raising now. This is where you do business. The budget itself will be read on the floor of the House. If you're going to bring resource persons to come and educate MPs as to the nitty-gritties of the budget, the technical aspect of the budget that so many MPs may not be qualified to understand, why are you taking us outside in terms of the cost, especially now that the country is at the IMF facing some economic challenges. But of course, he was alone on the floor. There was no support on either side of that position.
So the business statement was adopted, which means that the consensus is that Parliament will hold a post-budget workshop at Rock City in the Eastern region. But let's still stay in Parliament because President Akufo-Addo also took another step towards, filling the vacant seats at the Supreme Court by nominating 3 more individuals. Tell us more about it, Kwaku.
Yes, the president currently has 15 appointments to the Supreme Court. I mean, since he assumed office in 2017, he has appointed 15 persons to be on the court. He has now nominated 3 new persons. Before we get into the nitty-gritties, let's listen to First Deputy Speaker Joseph Osei-Wusu announcing the name of these 3 persons that the president has nominated to be confirmed by Parliament. According to the president, he believes these persons are qualified enough for Parliament to approve them.
To the satisfactory conclusion of the processes set out in Article 1442 of the Constitution, the following persons. 1. Justice Henry Anthony Kofi, Justice of Appeal. 2. Justice Yao Asaredako, Justice of Appeal. And 3. Justice Richard J. Frimpong, Justice of Appeal. On 27 July 2023, the Judicial Council advised me by letter under the hand of the Council's chairperson, Chief Justice Gertrude Araba Issa Basaki Tokonu, of the suitability of my nominations of these persons for appointment to the Supreme Court. Upon receipt of the Judicial Council's advice and in accordance with my duty under Article 1442, I consulted with the Council of State by submitting the names and curricula vitae of the nominees for appointment to the court. The Council of State has, by a letter dated 11th August 2023, notified me of the successful completion of the consultation process. I'm therefore, in accordance with Article 1442 of the Constitution, seeking the approval of Parliament for the appointment of the nominees as Justice of the Supreme Court. Their CVs are attached. I am fully satisfied that each of these persons is duly qualified and eminently fit to discharge the functions of a Justice of the Supreme Court. I have endorsed their respective CVs for your attention, and I await your response as soon as possible. I thank you in advance for your cooperation.
So, Kwaku, you're still with me. Is there any indication when the appointment committee will sit on the nominees?
Understanding is that is going to be as soon as possible because, as the president believes, there is an urgent need to put these 3 persons on the Supreme Court. There are currently 12 justices of the court, and these 3 will go and add up. It will be 15 on the court so that they can expeditiously deal with cases. But already the minority are raising cases. They are raising concerns. According to the NDC MP for Saudi, Roxanne Nelson Lafiamepo, there are serious concerns that they have about these 3 new persons who are going to end up on the court. They believe that the president is taking advantage of a lacuna in the Constitution to pad the court. We know that the Constitution of Ghana does not have a ceiling of judges that must go on the court. It means any president can appoint as many. But the consensus usually has been that you have 15 judges on the court. There are currently 12. That is why the president is seeking to add 3 more to be the usually acceptable 15. According to Roxanne Nelson, this is not acceptable, and they believe the president is doing something untoward.
I find it difficult to accept that the president will say that vacancies have been created because 3 other Supreme Court judges are retired. Now, your record will show that as we speak, we have 15 Supreme Court judges. Now, if the 3 are confirmed, no, he's appointed 15 Supreme Court judges. If these 3 nominees are also confirmed, that will make the number of his appointees at the Supreme Court since he assumed power in January 2017 to 18. But the evidence is that out of the 15 that we have, 3 have gone on retirement this year. So it means that we have 12 sitting Supreme Court judges who can actively serve the court. The full panel of the court is 9. So there's no vacancy at the court. Let the record reflect that I am saying that there's no vacancy at the Supreme Court to be filled. He is taking advantage of the constitutional lacuna for not placing a cap on the number of judges that can serve at the Supreme Court. So he has decided to increase the number from 12 to 15. So let the discussions be very clear and placed in context that as we speak, we don't have a vacancy at the Supreme Court as the president seeks to suggest. We have 12 Supreme Court judges who are capable of serving the court efficiently and effectively without any problem. Because a full panel of the court is 9. And on the average, the court is empaneled by 5 or 7 on regular basis. So I am shocked to hear that vacancies have been created. When there are no such vacancies, the president is simply pardoning the court with more numbers.
Bakwaku, per the 1992 Constitution, the president has done no wrong. I'm guessing the majority has a response for this.
Yes, definitely. In fact, per the Constitution, there's no cap on the number of judges the president can appoint. And you heard there from the first deputy speaker, the president went through an elaborate process, starting from the council, the Judicial Council, through to the Council of State, and now has put these names before Parliament. I caught up with the majority chief, with Frank Anodom, who was clear that the president has done no wrong and that Roxy Nelson, the former and his colleagues in the NDC are just playing politics as usual with such a sensitive matter.
He is a lawyer. He should tell us the legal basis for that statement. That is a sweeping statement. It's not tenable. It's not based in law. So he should know better. I'm surprised my good friend, Dafema will make such a strange statement. Packing the court. What that's supposed to mean?
If these 3 new go through, Akufo-Addo would have 18.
Is the president on all fours in terms of the law?
Yes.
Yeah, so what's the problem?
He believes he's taking advantage of the constitutional lacuna.
This is a civil, we are practicing a civil, democracy. And we are in a democracy. So if you think that the president has abused any of the laws, he knows what to do. But I commend the president for having having determined that, okay, there's a problem, there's a space. And then he filled the space. What's he saying? You should wait for the people to exit before they appoint. This is most unfair. I think the president is on all fours right in terms of the law. And so the firm, of course, should know better. And he should be guarded. When we are speaking about law, I have a legal background. I'm not a lawyer, but I have a legal background. I don't expect people like him to speak like that. He should give it to their full soldiers to be making these accusations.
So let me wrap up with you from Parliament because the House is back on Tuesday?
The packed schedule. So Monday they'll be back. Normally they say from Tuesday to Friday. But because of the budget, they want to clear a lot of outstanding businesses, a lot of bills that they have to do. So on Monday, they will set to try and finish up some of those businesses before the budget is read on Wednesday.
And we are picking information that the energy minister has again been summoned to appear before the House. Yesterday, we were expecting the national security minister to also come through. It didn't happen. Can you update us on these two matters?
Well, yes, today as well, if you look at the other paper, the national security minister was advertised again to brief MPs on the Gary situation. He did not. In fact, at the time the business statement was read, an NDC MP raised that issue, and the deputy majority leader explained that the leadership of the House had tasked him, Afenyo Markin, to liaise with the National Security Ministry on the situation. The update he had for the House was that all 8 persons who were arrested by the National Security, flown to Accra, detained, put before court, and remanded, have all now been released. And so he does not believe there's any issue. So, of course, as of now, we do not expect that the National Security Minister will come before the House again. But that will be something we'll be looking forward to next week. When it comes to the Energy Minister,
yes, he
is still expected to come with VRA officials next week to the House at a committee of the whole. This will allow members of the VRA to actually be part of this meeting, because if it's a normal parliamentary setting, it's only ministers, deputy ministers, and the president sometimes and the vice president who have audience on the floor. Any other person is deemed a stranger. So next week, if this committee of the whole sitting happens, VRA officials will now be allowed into this meeting. MPs will ask them questions, and then that will be taken care of. Because the minority have been present, they are demanding a committee of inquiry to be set up to investigate this matter. It is after this committee of the whole that there will be a determination as to whether there are more questions to be answered, then a final determination on a committee of parliament will be decided, Elton.
All right, so I guess we'll see you shortly on Ghana Connect soon on Joy 99.7 FM. Bokwa Sante is our parliamentary correspondent, and you are still watching the polls here on Joy News. Before we go, as part of our build-up to next week's budget, we brought you the Send Ghana issues that they want to discuss, and I guess it is something that we'll look forward to on Monday. But as part of our build-up to next week's budget, we found out our government effort on tackling communicable diseases. We found out how the Send taxes have helped shape lifestyles. Have Ghanaians been deterred by the excise duty amendment tax?
They want to stop.
No, they take, but it come down small. The market is stopped more because maybe people they come we want to buy 2 or 3 or 4, but because of the increase the price, it will buy 1 or 2. Maybe the person they buy 4, he will buy 2.
You're welcome back on the pause, and before we go, civil society organization Vision for Alternative Development says it has evidence that the tobacco industry is frustrating the implementation of the tobacco tax. The prevalence of non-communicable disease in Ghana is worrisome, killing over 94,000 Ghanaians annually, rendering others disabled, with many children lacking basic needs of food, shelter, and education. In line of this, government has policies for the control of tobacco use, including tobacco taxation, have actually been recommended by the ECOWAS and the World Health Organization as cost-effective interventions for preventing and controlling NCDs. We'll hear from smokers and dealers in the tobacco products shortly. Before that, listen to the Director of Programs at Vision for Alternative Development Ghana, Lambram Musa, who says research findings indicating that the tobacco industry is influencing the implementation of the excise duty amendment law passed by Parliament last year.
Okay, right. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Right. So, in the lead up to the passage of the Excise Duty Amendment Act 2003, Act 1093, we in fact experienced a lot of industry, interferences, and which most of them were mostly, subtle. So we have to commission a study to ensure that we are able to identify some of the tactics that the industry use. And these tactics are not new. They are tactics that have been used over the years in many countries, especially when countries are eager or want to comply with the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, which Ghana is also a party. So they try to ensure that they are able to either derail or to ensure that undermine the process so that we don't get it, passed.
My colleague Jacqueline Ansumaya now brings us her interaction with smokers and tobacco product dealers.
Well, there's been a lot of talk on the use of tobacco in Ghana, talking about the detrimental effect it has on our system, and also currently the price increase on tobacco in Ghana. Currently I'm with a couple of tobacco users and also one of the owners here who also sells it, to have a conversation with them when it comes to the taxes, the fact that now there are more taxes on these items, but still the consumption seems to increase, and the fact that there are detrimental effect, but still they continue to consume it. So let me just start my conversation with them. Hello sir, how are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm doing very fine.
Yes, please.
Okay, my first question, you taking cigarettes?
Yes, of course, I take cigarette.
All right. So why? Because I can see smoking causes rotten teeth. It damages your unborn child. It doesn't let others smoke. It causes a whole lot. But why do you still take it?
Yes, as you rightly said, it is written there. But we've been taking it since long, and it is something that boosts my immune system. Somebody can take something to boost his immune system.
It boosts your immune system?
Yes, I like tobacco. Whatever you write there, I don't care. After all, even the current government, taxes here, taxes there, taxes wherever, but everybody is moving on. You cannot stop even the government on power not to impose taxes on certain things, but he's doing it. So if a group called itself has come out to say that they are putting on taxes on cigarette or tobacco, it's a welcoming news. That wouldn't deter us from taking tobacco. Tobacco has been part and parcel of us. and it is with us. We will never leave tobacco. No matter how much they increase it, we will smoke tobacco. Even if they put it 100%, we will still smoke tobacco because tobacco is parcel of us.
Yeah. No, how long have you been taking tobacco?
If I'm not mistakenly, I started tobacco when I was 16 years.
Wow.
Tobacco, yes, 16 years.
And how old are you now?
I'm now 48.
That's a very long time.
Yes.
But doesn't it have any effect on your body?
I've never been to hospital, and my doctor has proven that tobacco has an effect on me. I have no.
So you as for you, dear, no side effect on your body?
My doctor have not proven it yet, so I still that I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm okay with tobacco.
All right. Before I continue the taxes, I have another gentleman here. You also consume tobacco?
No, I don't take. No.
You've never
Not at all. Not
but
at all.
now there are taxes on it. What is your take on it? There are taxes on tobacco use. It's increased. The prices are really up. What is your take on it?
Okay, first of all, for me, I don't, buy or sell tobacco. Yeah, but for me, putting taxes on the tobacco for me is not okay. You understand? Because you putting taxes on this, come on. You understand? So for me, it's not okay at all. They should allow them to buy how to sell or how to buy same price that they want. Yeah, you put in.
So you think it should be free?
Be free, yeah, of course. Be
free of taxes.
Yes, exactly.
Tax free. All right. So I have another gentleman here who also you take into.
I take tobacco.
Okay. Now, how long have you been taking this?
Let's say about 5 years. It's 5 years. Yeah, exactly 5 years.
The side effect that they talk about, I see a lot causing breathing issues. Have you experienced any of them?
I know how this is caused, but I have not experienced everything about it. Like, and I don't have any effect about it. And
you are very fine. You're okay.
I'm okay. Right now, I'm going to take some right now.
I see. Now there are taxes. The big conversation is there are taxes.
They have to take the tax from it because this thing is killing people, plenty people. So how can you put a tax on it? Then that means you are not going to buy again.
Oh, if they still continue the tax, you are going to stop.
I will stop because I cannot.
Do you think that would benefit the government?
Then I don't have a problem. I don't care.
So you stop?
I will stop so that I'll be free.
Let me come to you. Have been taking it for long. If the taxes increases, are you going to stop?
I will never stop it because I know what it does to my system. I love tobacco. I love tobacco. Tobacco of any kind, I love it. It is good for me.
So you wouldn't stop?
No, I will never stop tobacco.
Okay, all right. So I have the owner here. He also sells some here. Now, sir, you have been selling this for how long?
It's almost 11 years now.
11 years now. Is it a lucrative business for you?
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you are directly involved in this high prices. You know what is going on. Is it affecting your business in any way?
It can be affecting my business because if they increase the price, the customers will be stopping to come and buy the thing. So I don't like the interest. They increase the price to become.
Yeah.
Well, you heard from those who have been using tobacco, and for them, it will continue regardless of the imposition of taxes that government intends to impose on tobacco. Well, that's it for the pulse on Joy News, which also came to you live on DSTV and of course on the Go TV channel, and also of course on all our social media platforms. Until Monday, you have a great weekend, a restful one, of course. My name is Elton Gobian. Have a good weekend.